Hello everybody, Keith here again. This is a repot that I've been putting off for a very long time, partly because the plant doesn't seem to be suffering and it still fits in its pot, but it really has been in this material for, it must be at least 3 years if not longer, and I think it just needs changing, a refresh. Can't say that it smelled much of anything. We've got lots of roots, and we've got some good roots, you can see that, with root tips all the way through it. But I have noticed in the last few months that when I've been trying to to water some of my plants, which I do roughly every week, this one hasn't wanted doing every week. Now I know that Paphs, and this thing of course is my American hybrid, the first Paph that I bought. Well, I know that these like to be on the damp side, but nevertheless we all know that as bark starts to degrade it gets acid, and very few orchids like it acid. So I've just got to the point where I'm going to have to grit my teeth and just see what I can do. Now, how easy it's going to be to get it out of here is anybody's guess. My feeling is it's going to be difficult, and I suspect that split itself into two plants. It has. Well, I don't know whether that makes it harder or. Oh, there we go. Well, I've got it out of the pot anyway. Put that out of the way for a start. Ugh. Oh, this is horrible. This is all a lot of algae, all slimy down here. And it's very, very wet, but we've got, as you saw through the pot, a lot of good roots. So this is not going to be a quick job to get rid of all this bark. So I think, rather than bore everybody witless watching me doing this, what I'm going to do is turn the thing off, and I'll do what I can with it. It may well end up that I'm going to have to dunk it in rainwater and sort of try and rinse it off, because one thing I do know about Paphs is their roots get very, very sticky indeed. So I might have problems moving it anyway. So yeah, I'm going to call it quits for a minute, and then we'll come back. Well, in fact, it didn't take as much doing as I thought it was going to do. It seemed once I'd started to disturb it's pretty much had it, this has, so it was well ready for doing this bark. I've lost a few good roots, but there's a lot of good stuff, and on both pieces there are new roots coming, so I'm not too worried about that. It's really now a question of which size pot I try and put them in. So you can see the roots were horribly tangled, but the whole thing did come to bits rather easier than I thought it was going to do. The roots look pretty good. I've actually got them soaking in rainwater at the minute to try and get the last few bits of bark off and hopefully make the roots as pliable as possible, although they were fairly wet as it was. But I've rubbed the coating off some bits. There's nothing I can really do about that, but the roots are very long and quite thick on this. So that's been in plain bark for years on end, so I can put it back into plain bark, I think, or put them back possibly into plain bark. I've just got to decide what size pot I'm going to use and whether I've got enough of the right size pot. It's always a difficult problem, I find, when you're repotting orchids that sometimes you've got plants with very long roots, but the plant itself's not physically big, so you end up either cutting the roots off, and I'm not a great fan of that if I can avoid it, or you end up coiling them up and trying to pack the bark in around the roots you've got, and I think that's what I'm going to end up trying to do with these. I've just got to decide whether I'm going to put both of them back in the same pot. They'd naturally broken into two across the pot. It had two growing points that were growing away from each other, and of course with paphs each fan flowers, and then over the course of a year or so it dies off while the next growths develop and so on. So you've got a dead spot in the middle, and when I started to move it, it had already sort of died off between the two. So anyway, that's got to that point. I'll turn the video off again while I get everything up ready to go, and then we'll come back and show you how what I've decided to do. Right then, I've given them a soak. I've taken off as much of the old bark as I could that was still sticking to the roots. I've trimmed quite a chunk off the very long roots. Some of them were still okay, but when I tried to put them back in the same pot, I'm going to put both of them in the same pot, the roots were just too long. They'd gone round and round and round inside the pot and they needed easing. Now what I've done is I've put some extra holes in the pot, because lower down that was staying wet far too long. This is what it started off as. This is a Stewart 18.5 centimetre clear pot, and I've already made some slots in both of these at the bottom, because I didn't think there was enough drainage to it. All I've done with this is I've got my soldering iron and just put a number of rows of holes in it, in the hope that will help to get this thing where we want it to be. It was in orchid focus bark, I'm pretty sure. I think I've got some coarse bark that will do just as well, because these are quite a thick root. We're talking about something along the size of a lot of Phalaenopsis roots, so you need a coarsish bark for that. So we'll use some of this stuff, I think, in these pockets. Right, a little bit in the bottom to get things started. Now I'm going to put them in facing in opposite directions, and I've tried to trim the roots so that they don't need a lot. Now if by having taken that piece out from here, I can put them in again in exactly the same orientation that they were in before, like that, and I can bring them back together. It'll look a lot better in the pot, it'll display much better, although of course these two plants, not a specimen plant, but I'm not honestly sure how you do a specimen slipper given the way that they grow. And what have you, because since you're going to always have parts of the plant that are growing away from other parts of the plant, you're always going to end up with something a bit strange. So I don't know, that's another issue, but this has been a cracking plant for me ever since I got it. I bought it at a Kew Orchid Festival I think it might have been 2015, it might have been 2016. Don't think it was 17, whenever it was. And it was the first non-Phalaenopsis orchid that I bought. And not knowing any better, I treated this exactly the same way as I did my Phalaenopsis, and it's thrived. It sits on a northwest facing windowsill all year round. In our kitchen, minimum temperature in the room is about 22. But I think that up against the windows in the window, it'll get quite a bit cooler than that. Sea temperature quite a bit cooler than that. Just by the cold working its way through the double glazing. So it seems to do absolutely fine. In fact, all of my fowls are on that. Paphs are on that same windowsill, and they all do quite well for me. So it'll be very interesting to see where this one goes from now on. We've got the two plants with two growing tips back to back, and there we are. Wish I hadn't put it off quite so much now. It seems to be it was a much easier repot than I thought it was going to be. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.